Ça fait rêver, ça fait vibrer, ça fait danser. Oh, Africa, ça fait rêver, ça fait vibrer, ça fait danser. Oh, Africa, Mariula, Guaragaya, Misa, Solana, Bakawalaye, Yawala, Malilela, La Guinée, le Congo, Sénégal, le Bénin. Africa, 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 Africa,
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome. Welcome to all our Namibian audiences and all our African audiences. This is the 2021 edition of the brand Africa Most Admired Brands. And I will be your host for this afternoon. It is going to be a wonderful and fast-paced program. So be locked, be tuned in, and we will be talking you through a few things that have to do with African brands. And if you find yourself here, then it means you are either working in brands, you are an advertising agency, you love African brands, or you are just African and you are passionate about what Africa is producing and where Africa is going. So I'll be your host, Tinaya Mude, and I am the account director for TBWA Namibia. So in a short while, I'm going to be introducing Karen Duchesne, who is the Chief Growth Officer for Africa and Middle East for Cantor, and she'll be taking us through the methodology of Brand Africa. And then I will also then introduce you to Tabe Ikelafeng, who is Mr. Brand Africa himself, and get into a few question and answers, and then we will then wrap it up. Thank you all so much for making and taking the time out to join us. And so we'll then kick off the program. And Karen, are you ready?
I am indeed. Thanks, Tanai.
Excellent.
Tebe, we'll have the next slide. Hi, everybody, and happy Africa Day. Yes, we're here joining Namibia for the results of the Brand Africa 100 this Africa Day. So let's get right into it. So I'm joining you today from Kantar, and Kantar is an insights agency. We do research across the continent, and we're really passionate about understanding people, what they buy, what they want, and how they think. And this is the 11th year that we have partnered with the Brand Leadership Group to produce the Brand Africa 100 Index. And this really has become one of the most important events on the Africa calendar to look at which brands are resonating in the hearts and minds of Africans across the continent. And this year, the coverage is even better than ever. We go east, we go west, we go south, we go north, we go central. 28 countries are covered in this year's study. And how do we actually do it? In almost all the countries, we do it via mobile. We've got the most incredible partner, Geopol, who has got wonderful coverage to do mobile research across our continent. And I'd like to give a big shout out to Caitlin Panickick in particular from Geopol, who has been coordinating the program for us. And let's learn a little bit more about Geopol and how it works. They are a leading mobile research platform. They've got over 5 million people profiled for research purposes, and their country coverage is over 250 million mobile subscribers, a perfect platform for research when you want to do it mobile. And to make sure we had really great coverage, we did the survey in 2 key ways. The first one is SMS for those people that don't have a smartphone, and the second one is using the mobile web. We just click them a link and we ask their opinion on which brands they love and admire. So why is mobile so very, very perfect for Africa? That's because internet in Africa is mobile. There's about 250 million people that are on the panel, and 747 million have actually got a mobile phone in Africa already. And so really great penetration, and we know that this is going to continue to grow and grow. So you can find out more about Geopol on their Twitter handle or on their website. So for this year's survey and every year's survey, we cover 4 key areas. The first one is the most important one, which is which brands do you admire the most? And here we asked everybody to give us at least 3 brands that they admire. This could come from any category, from a mobile phone to a soft drink to an alcohol to a bank, you name it. Anything goes, and we then classify them into the different brand areas. After that, we ask them specifically, please tell us which brands you admire that are actually made in Africa. Very interesting findings will come through, as you will see. We then ask about financial services, because this is so critical to enable brand growth in the region, as the movement of money. And we finish up on understanding which are the media brands that are most admired. And we know that it's the media that helps us to advertise and build these great brands in Africa. This year, we added an additional question because it's been such a crazy year with COVID. We added the question, who has been the most helpful brand during these COVID times? And Tebe will reveal who that is. So in total, it's a massive data. We get over 80,000 brand mentions, we code, we classify, and this year we've got about 3,500 unique brand names that have been mentioned across the continent. It's quite an exercise getting this data all into order, coding, classifying, and then ultimately we move it into the brand, into the weighting process. This is where we look at all the actual population data and we make sure that our data is weighted to be representative of the full African continent from a population and size perspective. Now, let's be clear, in order to get onto the top 100, it's not easy. You cannot just be a purely local brand. You need to be a Pan-African brand. You need to be mentioned in at least more than one country. So for the year, we've seen that COVID has had quite a big impact on many categories in 2020. Some have benefited, some not so much. We've seen a big uptick in products that are involved in sanitizing or germ killing. We've seen sport has been on hold, but still there were many reruns and stuff, and you can see the brands that sponsor sport really come through very strongly across our continent. We know some brands had a tough time because they weren't available for sale in restaurants and bars, and they've had to think hard and think differently about how to stand out in these times. And largely, from a fashion perspective, we've seen people move to far more relaxed and casual wear as they work from home in their tracksuits. So what I can say is that when you've built a great brand, it's far more resilient than you'd ever think. We have beaten COVID and we still stand out in the hearts and minds of African consumers. One of the things we see is across every country, the strong African identity and design is really important, and African fabric is always mentioned as a brand, be it Katenga or whatever it's called in the local country's name. We see that people want products that are durable but still have great design. They want them to last because often finances are tight in Africa. What has been lovely to see is the big boost that online sales have received during 2020 and 2021 due to COVID, as people haven't wanted to go out. We've seen many people trying online shopping for the first time and being happy to pay using very often mobile money. So yes, the role of the mobile operators in terms of moving money around the continent is really clear, and you'll see how important these are in this regard. As I've already alluded to, soccer is so important for brand building in Africa, and the brands that support our soccer stars really do shine through. Okay, that was very fast. And if you can get behind local sports people that are admired and loved in the country, you'll see that consumers thank you and they mention your brand. Tuskers are doing well in Kenya, for example. And we've got brands like Guinness that have really got behind understanding local nuance and what drives people in Africa. And many people believe Guinness is an African brand. Handsets, absolutely. This is what we all need and love in our lives. And we've seen Chinese giants like Techno really get to the bottom of how to distribute, how to make sure their products are available in different price points and that they offer that durability that people are seeking. From an automotive perspective, we're seeing that local brands like Innocent and Katanka are continuing to come through and challenge those global players, bringing a little bit of rugged hardiness and affordability to the continent. And also lovely to see, once again, a number of local conglomerates shining through as they expand out of their local countries across into the neighbors and beyond. And we must give recognition to those that have been building brands in Africa for many, many years. The likes of Coca-Cola still shines through in the top 5. Sorry. I seem to have got a little itch. And then, of course, we see mobile operators playing such an important role in people's lives. MTN was, in fact, mentioned in 15 countries, and that's why it comes through so well in the standings. So when we ask people about African brands, what we do see is that many people believe that international brands are actually made here locally. That's because they're so much a part of our daily lives. That's because they think globally, they act globally, and they think locally. They resonate, they get beneath the local insights and make sure that they connect with people and what's relevant for them. So Nike, none other than Nike, knows how to do that very well. They've picked on local stars, sports people, influencers, designers like Starboy, like this designer here where the shoes have been implemented, just really getting behind the people that are making a difference in our continent. So that was really just a quick race through the highlights package of some of the insights coming through. And now it's really the moment you've all been waiting for, which is to hear from Tebe Kalafing, the founder and chairman of Brand Africa, to share the actual findings. So over to you, Tebe.
African level. I thought at the beginning, let's set up the results at the beginning. Let's give you a recap of how the continents performed before we put Namibia into context. So how did we do? 13% of the brands that Africans admire, only 30% are African. So we have held the same number that we did last year. Like everything else in life, COVID arrived and kept everything at a standstill. That's what people say, we had the reset. So we had a reset from last year or the year before. Because nothing much happened last year. So wherever we were last year, that's where we are again, and the brands show just that. What an interesting coincidence, actually. Just affirms where we are with the rest of the world. The top 10 most admired brands in the continent: Nike, Adidas, Samsung in the top 3. Gucci has been there for the last 10 years. Techno is there in the top 5. And Techno is quite an interesting story because Techno, I think 10 years ago, was in the 30s, and now it's in the top 5. What an incredible African story. You look at the most admired African brands: Dangote, MTN. When you prompt the citizens and ask them what's your most admired African brand, they come up with Dangote. When you just say what's your most admired brand, they come up with Nike. But the two of them, they've constantly held those 2 spots. Then who tells our story? It's very important. DSTV. Why DSTV? BBC has been number 1 for the last 10 years. And all of a sudden, DSTV knocks them off the pedestal. What happened during COVID? We all stayed home. We used streaming services. We watch paid channels. Who brings them to us? DSTV. And that's how DSTV catapulted to the top of the rankings. When it comes to financial services, GT Bank. GT Bank, phenomenal success story. 2 years in a row, number 1. They're investing a lot on technology, investing a lot in service, because they understand that the customer of the future is not going to be found in bricks and mortars, but it's going to be found through technology. And they're putting the money. The First Bank has been on this list forever and ever. And I mean, you can see the list is dominated by the brands that you would expect. EcoBank, one of the biggest banks in the continent. Bank of Africa, similarly. Standard Bank, I think the biggest by assets. Capitec, one of the brands ranked as the most number 1 in service across the world. When it comes to categories, we're in consumers, we're in consumer non-cyclical, we are in electricals, Where in auto manufacturing, Minkara spoke about Innocent and Katanka. It's quite interesting that we are now in that space. It doesn't area that requires a lot of money, but it shows you the growth as a continent where we are. Luxury, Gucci, Gucci, Gucci. 10 years in a row in the top 10, and accounting for 8% of the category. If you look at the top category leaders, Nike Sports, Samsung in electronics, Coca-Cola in beverages, and MTN in telecommunications, Toyota, Ambessa out of Ethiopia, retail checkers, Google, because we were searching and searching for a cure for the COVID. Namibia, just as I said, Ethiopian, what a beautiful story. They came even from all the way from nowhere to number 51 on the top 100. Why? Because during COVID, they were moving around the continent, moving around the world, moving east, moving vaccines, moving cargo. They really reimagined the business during COVID. Of course, MTN donated medical vaccines to 9 countries around the continent. 9 million vaccines. So that really got them into the heart of Africa. So it continues to do that. The results for the top 100, they're out this weekend. That's the cover for your magazine. Look forward to reading it and getting into some of the details onto these brands and what drives them and how they got to where they are. That's your top 100 brands in the continent. So let's talk about Namibia. One of my favorite cities. I've done some risky things in Namibia. I've skydived in Namibia. So I love Namibia, but I've never been to Social Flake, to the Sand Dunes. It's still one of my greatest misses in life. But I want to do that very soon. Let's talk about the brands though in Namibia. The number 3 brand, Samsung. Number 2 most admired brand in Namibia, Adidas. Number 1 brand, most admired overall, Nike. Nike, Adidas, Samsung, Apple, Puma, top 5. What's interesting is Mshasho, number 8, local brand, NTC. Most admired African brands in Namibia, STV, Shasho, MTC. A dominant player in Namibia, one of the finest brands in the country. MTC, Shasho, TSTV, MTN, Windhoek, stalwart brand in Namibia. Most admired local media brands, Africa TV, MTC is seen as a media brand. NBC. No, they've had some problems, but that's what everybody gets to knows. Everybody knows it, and they look to NBC because not everybody can afford a pay TV. NBC, MTV, and One Africa. When it comes to financial services, Fenate at 3, Trasco at number 2, number 1, Bank Windhoek. How interesting, Bank Windhoek in Namibia, Bank Gaborone in Botswana. Interesting that the banks named after the cities of the two of the great cities in the continent are top of the list. Bank Windhoek, Trasco, Fenate, Capricorn Group, Bank of Namibia, GIPF on the top 5. Then who are the brands which are admired during COVID in Namibia? Look at the list. WHO, the Ministry of Health, NBC, and then the 2 MTC and FNB, who we relied on for during COVID. You look at what Namibia is, the number one brand from Namibia, which is recognized as having been very, very helpful during COVID. Most admired brands by region, Adidas. Adidas is the most admired brand in the region. So, in closing, what can we conclude about the results this year? We haven't lost ground, but we're still only at 13%. So what are we learning? Local economies. There's a big focus on local economies, on great brands. Local brands are making inroads. A survey by How We Made It in Africa said 63% Africans prefer to buy local. So it's a great opportunity. COVID has been both a disruptor, because it disrupted economies, it disrupted lives and livelihoods, but it's also been a catalyst for growth. It's a catalyst for looking home, looking to our own, to create our own great brand. With the Africa Free Trade Continental Free Trade Agreement that's coming up, we are headed in a really, really good space, because the goods that are going to move around the continent have to come from Africa. So what do we need to do? We launched this initiative a few months ago, that for us to move forward, we need to buy Africa and build Africa. We need to buy Africa as a continent and invest in made in Africa goods, because when we do that, we are building the economy. Whether you're an MTN or an MTC, any of the great brands, it's important to associate yourself with this. And to qualify, you have to be credited in Africa, registered in Africa, pay tax in Africa, employ 1% in Africa, serve African consumers. What's the story here? The story here is, if you're an African brand, to become a great African brand, you must be transformational, you must be benevolent, and you must invest in growing the country, the city, and the continent. Tinai, it's up to you. That, ladies and gentlemen, are the results for Namibia.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tebe. You were very clear and very precise. But I think what was intriguing for me was that MTC has become the most dominant brand in Africa for the second year running. This is our second edition in Namibia, and they are the most dominant brand. What contributes to that? What are they doing that other brands are not doing? And what should other brands start doing for them to be dominant next year?
I think what MTC does very, very different from everybody else is they invest in the brand. They invest in the brand. They are deliberate. They take it's a long game, because understand, building a brand is not a sprint. It's a marathon. But they also have presence. But most importantly, I think service is key driver. Because the points of contact with MTC, when you move around Namibia, I think it's probably second to Coca-Cola, as in within an arm's reach. So if you move around Namibia, you certainly will see. So some of the great brands are available, they're accessible, they serve, they are relevant, and they invest in building a great customer experience.
So service is a dominant force driver. Affordability and accessibility.
To me, accessibility most certainly, and relevance. So you know what you need a phone for these days? I think Karen spoke about it earlier. You need a phone these days because you want to transact. You need a phone these days because you want to communicate. You need a phone these days because, I mean, it's everything. It's pretty much everything goes through the phone. You communicate, you transact, you build companies, you run your business through the phone. It is probably, I can't see how we can exist anymore without phones until something else happens. Then I'll wonder what we were doing with phones. But until then, looks like for the foreseeable, we are here with phones.
Excellent. Okay, now turning to COVID, because COVID-19 has been a reality, especially for many Africans. And I don't know anybody in my sector who has not been either directly or indirectly affected by COVID. But it has forced us to be innovative. It has forced us to think outside the box. And in your opinion, as the Mr. Africa brand, what should African brands do, existing, upcoming, and the ones that are in incubation? What should they do in terms of making sure that they survive in the new normal? And what should they do, like in the short term, medium term, long term, for us to be able to survive this? Because I believe we have a market of 1.3 billion people, and we are the youngest population in the world. Africa is meant to be, it's a time bomb that is going to be a force to reckon with. What should existing, incubative, and starting out brands do to survive this?
Well, I mean, the existing brands are the ones that have got the hardest work to do. I think if you look at what happened during COVID, what happened? A lot of brands had to reimagine themselves. So they had to reimagine, they had to pivot, they had to reinvent themselves. So you saw a brand like Louis Vuitton making sanitizers, for example. You saw a brand like Ford making what do you call this? Inhalers. the ventilators, making the ventilators. You saw every single brand had to reimagine, how can I use the resources that I have, or the investment that I have, to serve the community? But I think there was a one common thread through all the brands that we saw during COVID, whether you're existing, whether you're new, and all those. The common thread for all of them was, how can I be a better citizen? How can I contribute to alleviating the difficulties that COVID has brought? So that's what you realize COVID has taught. But I think the most important is you have to reimagine, you have to review what you do, reimagine what you do, and you have to reset. But importantly, you have to be relevant. Because if you are relevant, it means you are timeless, and you are responding to the conditions of the place where you are and the times that are asking you to do that. And that applies whether you're an existing brand or whether you are an up-and-coming brand. Because if an up-and-coming brand, what is your benefit? Your benefit is you don't have legacy issues. You see, the existing brands, they've got legacy issues. It's a Titanic. It takes a long time to turn the Titanic. But if you're new, you can pivot easily. But of course, if you're existing, you've got the resources to experiment. And if you're young, if you're new, you've got the ability to take chances.
Exactly. So, what is your general opinion on like big brands, big African brands, wanting to buy out the young and upcoming? So for example, we have Batu in South Africa, who is the shoe making company. If Nike comes to him and says, we want to buy you out and we want to buy your IP and your designs, what advice would you give to Batu? Would you tell him to sell and leave? And I took Nike because I knew you were the CMO of Nike years ago. And so, yeah.
It depends on the reason that Batu established the business in the first place. So if you understand the purpose, then you understand which way you can go, which the direction you get to. If your purpose, if when you started because you wanted to just make money, then anybody can offer you money. But if you started, as Batu says, that they started in order to inspire others and to create jobs, then you ask yourself the question is the way I'm doing things on my own the better way to do jobs? Or if I partner with a Nike, will they enable me to realize my goal faster? Or do you want to do exactly what Nike did? Started on its own course and build a great brand. So that's how you look at these questions. Everything goes back to the why. Because if you know the why for living, you can find almost anyhow.
Exactly. Now, turning back to Namibia, what was the biggest surprise when you were going through the data and cleaning it up and putting together the presentation and putting together what we presented today? What was the biggest surprise for you in terms of the hunger of Namibian brands?
Well, I mean, it's the same as
passion of Namibian brands, and
it's the last 2 years. The last 2 years, I've been surprised by the power of the brands that we never hear of, and we just down the road. And we have never heard of some of the brands like Mshasho and the other hip hop brands last year. And I said, where are these brands from? But then it gets to show you an important thing, that just because you've got a thin border dividing you, does not mean that you are the same country. It means that all countries have got a certain identity and different things drive them. And it also goes to show you that the young entrepreneurs, they really know how to tap onto the heartstrings of the Namibians. So I'm not sure if it's a surprise or it's not a negative surprise. It certainly is a delightful surprise to see that, because we need to see a lot more of that. Because I don't think it's good for anyone that when you go from Joburg to Namibia to Ghana to anywhere, you get to see the same things, because it kills the identity of the place and the brand. It's more exciting if you experience new things, I think.
Excellent. All right, so one last question. In terms of the Free Africa Trade Agreement that has been signed by, I think, all African countries except one or two that are still in ratification, what should Namibian brands do to get themselves ready for capitalizing on the Free Africa Trade Agreement?
They should find their competitive advantage. They should find who they need to collaborate with, where they need to focus their energies, and where they need to collaborate and where they need to exchange. Because I think for the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement to succeed, we're going to need businesses which are distinctive, which have a very different value proposition, and which are willing to trade. But most importantly, you're going to need scale. So if you're going to need scale, you can't be spread all over the place. You can't be everywhere. So that's why you're going to have to collaborate. You're going to have to partner. You're going to have to focus.
Think African, act local.
You think, to us, it's always been our motto. It's been our motto at Brand Leadership, all the way to Brand Africa, that if you think local and you act global, you are immersing yourself in the needs and the conditions of where you are, and you are delivering to a world standard.
Excellent. One final word. Please tell us more about the Leadership Brand Academy, and then you can give us your final word before I close up and we go on with our African Day.
Thank you, Chinai, for that commercial moment. So after 11 years of doing Brand Africa, where we know now on average only 20% of the brands that Africans admire are African, we realize that there's a big branding gap. So the question is, how are we going to close that branding gap? There's many ways we're going to close the branding gap. One is definitely from the skills perspective. That what the Africa Brand Leadership Academy is about. It's about sharpening the minds that build the brands, that build the continent. So it's really about looking at how can we, from an education perspective, intervene and try and alleviate some of the challenges that African brand builders are facing. That's why we've created a Brand Leadership for Entrepreneurs program, and we've created a brand leadership even for the public sector, and the reason we've created those two programs is important because we want to make sure that from a public sector they know how to support, but from an entrepreneur they know how to turn their great ideas into great brands and products.
Excellent. And is it available in Namibia? Is it an online platform? How can people sign up? How can corporate sign up? Because I know we have a few representatives online.
ABLA is a Pan-African institution. It is a Pan-African institution of a new age where bricks and mortars are overrated and education is fluid and you can access it. We've just graduated our first cohort of virtual from 13 different countries who attended live school every week and had a fantastic new age AI inspired graduation. So ABLA is available where you are right now.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Only at abla.academy, abla.academy.
Abla.academy. Abla.academy is the website to be in. If you're passionate about African brands, if you're passionate about building a brand that will outlast any other African brand. Thank you so much, Tebe. Any final words? Any final thoughts?
Most important thing, thank you so much for the opportunity to present the brands to Namibia. Very, very inspiring as always. I'm looking forward to Friday because Friday, what's happening on Friday? Tell us about Friday.
So on Friday, we will then have the final event where we will bring in the winners into the office and the media will be there. There'll be an exchange of a few things, a few conversations here and there. We'll obviously be COVID-19 restrictions and regulations compliant. And then I'm sure by next week we'll then catch on to what the media would have captured, and a lot of it will be then covered there. And we start building up to 2022 most admired brands.
Yes.
Excellent.
As always, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Have a wonderful one.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy your afternoon. Stay safe. Wash your hands, sanitize. Wear your masks when you go out. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Goodbye.